Hello, ladies, and welcome back to another e-lesson and another video. We're just gonna get right into it today because there's a bit to cover, and we're just gonna pick right up where we left off yesterday, where we were introduced to David, right? And the prophet Samuel was not really pleased with how the king Saul was running the show. And so he goes and anoints a new king who's this small, young boy, David. He's a shepherd, right? Um, and then you watched the clip from the Bible series where it was David versus Goliath, right? That classic tale. So we're going to continue with that story today and talking about David and continuing with our same objective to be able to identify the old covenant between God and the Israelites and how David um, continues that covenant. So, um, David, he slays Goliath with his sling, and the Philistine army kind of runs away, right? Um, and so after this, David, um, as you could probably expect, um, he gets more responsibility and sort of more attention in the court of Saul. And their relationship grows. So he's living at the court with Saul, and they grow very close. And the that clip you watched yesterday, it kind of did this kind of cool montage where you see David as a warrior at the very end, as like a young teenager, and then he grows up, and all of a sudden it's the man David. Um, and so this what they're kind of trying to capture there is how David um, became one of Saul's main warriors, main soldiers in his army. Um, David earned prominence as a soldier. Um, David also grows close with Saul's son, um, who his name is Jonathan, and it even marries Saul's daughter. So David and Saul are very close. They've got this very close relationship. And David is a great human being overall at this point in his life. um, he's loyal, he's a strong warrior, he's also very creative. The vast majority of the Psalms that we read, they're actually written by David. And that was one of the questions from yesterday was, what kind of job did David have um, before the Goliath story? David worked as an attendant for Saul, and part of that entailed singing him songs. He played and sang in Saul's court. Um, so even going back then, David is very loyal to Saul. Um, However, and I mentioned this yesterday, that when Samuel anointed David at an early age, anointed him as king, that this was going to become problematic. Despite everything I just said, despite David's unending loyalty and fidelity to Saul as his king, Saul becomes paranoid about all this. Um, he becomes paranoid about David trying to take over and trying to kill him. Um, Gets to the point where David fears for his life and he has to escape, and so his wife helps him escape. His wife, Saul's daughter. Um, Saul just becomes, yeah, this very paranoid person about all of this. Um, but David is totally innocent. Not only is he totally innocent, he's still totally loyal to Saul. And there's this really interesting story here. And I'll just kind of give you the Spark Notes version of it. David had the opportunity to kill Saul, and just be over this whole situation. He's, he's on the run. David is on the run. Saul is chasing him, and Saul is the one trying to kill David, right? Um, so there's this kind of funny story where David is hiding from Saul, and he's hiding in this cave. Um, Saul doesn't know where he is, but Saul's out looking for him and searching for him with his men. Um, and Saul leaves his men um, to go relieve himself. He has to do number two. Let's just say it. All right, he has to take a dump, and Saul goes into the cave where David is hiding. Um, and but Saul again doesn't know David's in there, and so David sees Saul coming in, and he sees Saul take off his robe, and then walk away and um, into a corner to you know go do his business. And what David does, he goes and he cuts off a piece of Saul's robe, um, and then when goes back and hides, and then when Saul is done relieving himself, he puts on his robe and he's like, "What the?" And then he hears David's voice saying, "This is how close I was to you. I could have killed you, but I didn't. Please stop what you're doing and trying to kill me, right?" Um, so it's a funny story, and for your first private comment, um, just kind of put that story in your own words here. What was the incident where David had the opportunity to kill Saul but didn't? Okay. So now what I would like to do is look at a couple of passages real quick. And if you need to pause the video um, and finish answering that that question, do so. Um, but I'm going to move on. So I want to take a look at a couple passages where we're going to see sort of the downfall of Saul as king now. Um, and as we had talked about, Saul is paranoid, um, and he starts to not only is he persecuting and chasing David, he's really in his head. And then now there's this another sort of weird and funny story here, where, well, I want to share this with you for a couple of reasons. One, because there's a funny, I think it's funny, reference here to a place called Endor. Um, that's funny to me and to anyone else who's a big Star Wars fan. You'll know that Endor is the planet where the Ewoks live and those small little teddy bears. But that's not what they're talking about here. But I just wanted to show you that. Anyway, um, Saul, he goes and searches out for um, what this translation calls a medium. Um, you might have seen this translated as a witch. Um, Either way, someone who kind of, you know, speaks with the dead, sort of. Anyways, it's kind of weird. Saul kind of disguises himself and he goes to this medium, um, and he wants to talk to Samuel. Samuel's been dead for some time now. And remember, again, Saul's paranoid, and so he's looking for advice. So he asks this medium to bring up Samuel for him. And she brings up Samuel, and basically Samuel says, "You're going to die." um, he says, "The Lord will give Israel along with you into the hands of the Philistines, and tomorrow you and your son shall be with me." So not great news for Saul. So I have that as a sort of bullet point for your notes right here. And all these points here are detailing the end of Saul. Um, so Saul, again, he is desperate and looking for advice. The Philistine army is about to attack. Um, and so he goes to this medium and she conjures up the ghost of Samuel. And Samuel basically says, "You're going to die." Um, and this is the sad part where Rather than be captured, Saul kills himself in the battle. Um, and I think this, is a very ancient old story, but even in this story, it says something about mental health, where Saul just became, I don't know, this very paranoid man. Um, Probably felt very alone too, um, and ended up taking his life. He took his life, right? So for your second private comment, just answer this quick question: how did Saul die? Okay. Um, so David is now anointed again king over all of Israel, um, and he is only 30 years old. That's relatively young. Um, David is able to do what Saul was unable to do, which was unite all the tribes, all 12 tribes of Israel, um, and he brings them together as one nation, Israel. This is around 1000 BC, so 1,000 years before Christ. Um, so the Philistines and Israel enter into battle again, but this time David he conquers them for good, and kind of takes care of that. Um, and in doing so, he captures Jerusalem, and he makes the city of Jerusalem the capital of Israel. And I'm going to show you a map here in a second and show you why Jerusalem is an ideal location for the capital. Um, but he then brings the Ark of the Covenant to Jerusalem, and the Bible specifically, the authors are specific about mentioning how David dances before it. Literally, he's dancing, um, and his wife thinks he's really weird because of it. So here's the map of uh, Jerusalem. So on this map, um, the big blue body of water there is the Mediterranean Sea, um, and then the sort of river um, and two smaller bodies of water um, coming. If you look up at the top near Geshur, um, the sort of blue line going down, that's the Jordan River. Um, and so in the middle of Israel, you can see where Jerusalem is. It's very centrally located. Um, and so, for obvious reasons, a central location makes it the ideal spot to have a capital of a nation, right? So, for your third and final question and private comment, answer me or tell me where, geographically is Jerusalem located in Israel? Okay, and why is this an ideal location? All right, so that's all I have for today. Um, Continue to do the great work, everyone, and I will hear from you soon. Okay, goodbye.